As a driven dentist, you see the world differently. Where some see scarcity, you see abundance. When others want to give up, you keep going. You're building an amazing life of significance. That means you can't rely on ordinary advice from ordinary advisors to get to your goals. You want advice that's going to help maximize your net worth so you can take even better care of the people you love, the causes you care about, and make your dent in the universe. But the fact is, this advice remains hidden because relatively few professionals are well versed in them, and the extremely affluent don't care to let you know about them. Join us as we pull back the curtain to reveal the often hidden advice and strategies used by today's most successful individuals and families. Welcome to Dental Wealth Nation. Here's your host, Tim McNeely.
Hey, welcome everyone to another edition of the Dental Wealth Nation show. And if you're a driven dental entrepreneur, you love growing your practice, you love taking care of your employees, you love making a meaningful impact in the world. But one of the things you probably don't like so much is the tax bill that you get every year. And that's why I'm so excited that we are here. We are going to be talking about cash balance plans for your practice. And by the time we finish today, you're going to know why you should consider a cash balance plan for your dental practice. You're going to have a better and deeper understanding of these plans and how they operate so that you can make an informed decision. But most importantly of all, you're going to feel excited because you're going to have an easy path forward to really save on taxes and fund your retirement at the same time. It's going to be amazing. And I'm so excited because with us today, we have Charlie Steingus. And Charlie is the founder and president of Cash Balance Actuaries. He's the guy who crunches all the numbers in these plans. This is going to be amazing. And what I love about Charlie so much is we were talking about the show before the show, and he really has a passion for helping business owners learn about the tax code and how you can make it work for yourself and your employees while saving for retirement at the same time. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tim.
Oh, I am so excited. I love these topics. I love these plans. I love the work that you do, and I love the impact that it makes. So I'm just so excited about today. But before we dive into some of the numbers and how powerful these plans are, I'd love to learn just a little bit more about you for our guests who don't know you yet.
Yeah, sure. So I started Cash Balance Actuaries 2009, so about 15 years ago. It was actually 15 years in August. Just me out of my basement. You know, I had worked for other actuarial firms for about 10 years before that, and just got to the point where I decided, you know what, I think I can do this a little better on my own. You know, give advice the way it needs to be given. You know, hire the right employees that can help me run these plans, things like that. And so, just me out of my basement in 2009 with a few clients, and have just kind of snowballed and grown it from there. Now we have 24 employees with about 1,000 clients spread out all over the country. And, you know, this is our area of focus. We do a lot of small business retirement plans. That's really all we do. So lots of dentists, attorneys, financial advisors, people like that, lots of professionals where, you know, the ratio of owners to employees is relatively low, and where they're paying a lot of taxes. So they're in high tax brackets and they're looking for ways to save on taxes.
Well, excellent. And we're going to come back to that specialty focus here in a moment, because that's so important when working with these plans. But before we get to the kind of the cash balance, the defined benefit plan asides of things, would you just take us through kind of like the levels and the options of different plans that are out there for business owners?
Sure, Tim. You know, I like to think of it kind of like a building block approach. So when you're looking at setting aside money for retirement, the first thing you can do is an individual retirement account, an IRA. So you don't have to own a business for that. Anybody can put money into an IRA. The downside is the limits are relatively small. Also, if you make over a certain threshold of money, then you're not allowed to deduct those contributions. So most dentists move past the IRA phase of the building block approach very quickly. The next level is probably what we call a simple IRA. So you have to own a business to have a simple. You allow your employees to put some of their own money in, and then the company puts in either a match or a non-elective contribution for them. Again, now you get into slightly higher limits. So in a simple, you can put in $10,000 to $15,000 a year. But again, most business owners are looking for more. The next level after a simple is probably a SEP. In a SEP, if you have employees, you're probably not going to want to do a SEP. A SEP would be for like a business owner that doesn't have any employees and wants to put in 25% of his or her income. So we don't see a lot of that with dentists because you have to put in the same percent of pay for employees and owners. And most of our business owners are looking to put in a larger percent for the business owners and less for their rank and file staff. So the next step in the level, probably the most common kind of plan for a dentist, is a 401k plan. And so in a 401k plan, employees, including the owners, can defer money out of their paycheck into the 401k. And there's almost always an employer contribution portion as well, whether it's a match or a non-elective or profit sharing. So that if you totally max out your 401k, you're probably putting in about $69,000 for the business owner, and the employees get somewhere between 4 and 8% of pay, usually for the business owner to get there, depending on demographics, how much they make, what their ages are, things like that. And so kind of the last step in that building block approach, if you've gone through those other ones, you get to, you get a 401k and you're maxing it out $69,000 a year, but you'd still like larger contributions and larger tax deductions, is we come in and we add a cash balance plan or a defined benefit plan, where the limits can be, they depend on your age and your compensation. But I mean, if you're old enough and make enough money, we've had some dentists putting in upwards of $300,000 or $400,000 per year to their cash balance plan. So the numbers get pretty big pretty fast, which is exciting, because now you're putting into these retirement plans, you're not taking it as income, so it decreases your tax bill by roughly whatever your tax rate is. So both state and federal taxes.
Okay, excellent. And right, so you really have kind of these graduated levels of plans, and I love how you talked about them being a stair step and building blocks. And I certainly see more and more doctors turning to these plans. But why do you think we see more and more doctors these days really implementing these plans instead of the traditional 401k and profit sharing?
Yeah, so a lot of it is legislative. So Congress has really started pushing these because they understand that we've got a retirement crisis in the United States and not enough people are saving. And so they're really trying to encourage and make them easier to use, more flexible. So we've seen a lot of new laws passed in the last 20 years, really, that have made cash balance plans, easier to use and just more affordable and more flexible, so that it's not, a lot of the scarier things that you used to hear about traditional defined benefit plans have kind of gone away with cash balance plans. We can build in flexibility in the contributions. We can build in flexibility in the investments. So I think that's kind of the biggest reason you're seeing the growth. And, people just hate paying taxes, right? I mean, some of these tax rates for the top earners are pretty high. And, rather than giving your money to the government, a lot of people would rather keep it for themselves and their employees. So, it's kind of getting it out there, right? Like, as actuaries, we're not great marketers. And so we're not out on the front lines often selling cash balance plans. So a lot of business owners don't even know that a cash balance plan is a possibility for them. They may have heard of it, they may not have, but they kind of, we have to dispel some of those rumors about how scary it is and just realize that, it's kind of just a supercharged 401k, and it's not actually that difficult.
Yeah. Well, you touched on the flexibility piece, and I want to talk about that real quickly. So in what ways, what are the concerns about flexibility? You mentioned kind of, they're more flexible than a defined benefit plan. What are some of the common things that the business owners are looking for flexibility in?
Sure. So, one of the scary parts that traditional defined benefits plans used to have is they would base your contribution every year on your highest 3 consecutive years of compensation, or some flat formula that required you to make a large, usually the goal is to put in some kind of 6-figure contribution. And if a company ever had a bad year, we went through it with COVID, where a lot of dental offices, had to shut down for a little bit and weren't making money. And so they were very concerned about, oh my gosh, how am I going to make this 6-figure contribution if my business didn't do very well this year? Well, with a cash balance plan, we can base your contribution simply on this year's pay. So we're seeing, works especially well with S corporations, although it can work with any kind of business entity. But in an S corporation, the business owner has the flexibility to raise or lower his or her pay as W-2, and they also get K-1. So they're still taking home the same amount of money. It's just, are they taking it home as an employee portion of compensation or as a business owner portion of compensation? And so we can set up a tiered formula that basically gives the owner total control over the cash balance contribution. So common formulas we're seeing these days are something like 10% of pay up to $200,000 plus 100% of pay over 200,000. So for example, the dentist has kind of a down year and takes a W-2 of 150,000. They're only going to put in 10% of that, or 15,000, to their cash balance plan. And the 401k and profit sharing, those contributions for the business owner at least are optional every year. So if they have a down year, they simply just don't make those. But in the good years, if a business owner says, I'd like a $120,000 cash balance contribution this year, they pay themselves, $300,000, and 10% up to 200 is 20 grand, plus 100% of the next 100 is another 100,000. You add those together and you get $120,000 contribution. And so, they can pick and choose their contribution from year to year simply by taking a bonus in December to adjust their payroll.
Wow, right. And I know that, right, the flexibility is one of the reasons so many doctors and dentists really love the 401k plan, is because it's an elective deferral. They can choose to put money in. And, I always share, hey, it's a profit sharing plan. So if you don't have profits, you don't have to share them. And so, right, that flexibility piece I know is so important with those 401ks. And it's great to hear that the cash balances have really come a long way in terms of some plan design that you can do to really maintain that flexibility, because I know that's a big fear, is cash flow, right? What happens if you do have a down year?
Yep.
And so when kind of looking at businesses, what kind of profile, right, to help the dentists who are listening to this, what are some good signs, or who's a good candidate for implementing a cash balance plan? And what are some factors they should be thinking about?
Yeah. So, first and foremost, this is really for businesses that are mature enough and throwing off some cash flow. So if you're a dentist that's just getting into it and you're spending all of your profits every year upgrading your equipment or paying off, school loans or paying off other debt that you might have, you're probably not ready for a cash balance plan yet. So it's really for dentists that are in a relatively high tax bracket, who also have extra money, and your choice is kind of, okay, well, do I just pay this money out to myself as profits and pay taxes on it now, or am I better off taking this money and putting it into a retirement plan to lower my tax bill and have it grow and save for my retirement? So that's really the number one thing. Beyond that, if you find yourself saying, yeah, I've got the money where I could afford to save an extra, 50,000, 75,000, 100,000, whatever that number is, into retirement, and I would love to not pay tax on it. Then the next question is, all right, what do my demographics look like for this? If I'm a single dentist with 100 employees that work for me, it's probably not going to work out as well from a tax standpoint. So my kind of general rule of thumb is, if in your dental practice, the ratio of employees to owners is 10 to 1 or less. So if you're a single dentist and you got 5 employees, the numbers are going to look great. If you're a single dentist and you got 10 employees, the numbers will probably still look pretty good. If you've got a group of 5 dentists and they have 50 employees, the numbers will probably look pretty good. So it's really that ratio of owners to employees. Some people, to help increase that ratio, some people will hire a spouse or children, things like that. The other thing that helps, and this is one of the reasons that it works so well for dentists, is generally just the life cycle of a dental practice, right? Like you go to school for extra years, then you know, start working as a dentist, then you buy into a practice, then you know, buy some equipment. And by the time you start really thinking hard about retirement, you might be in your late 40s, early 50s, something like that. And so some of your employees might be in their 20s or 30s. One of the ways we skew contributions towards the owners is basically the IRS says, well, if you have 10 years till retirement, we're going to take your contributions and project it out for 10 years. Whereas if you have an employee that has 40 years until retirement, we're going to take their contribution and project it out for 40 years. So, you know, if you kind of follow the time value of money, I don't have to give very much today to a 25-year-old employee. It's going to grow to a really large number at retirement age because they're starting earlier. So, you know, businesses where they have a dentist in their, you know, late 40s, anytime in the 50s, even we're setting some up that are still in their 60s, just depending on how long you want to work, and who have employees in their, you know, 20s and early 30s, that the numbers work out so nicely because we can give so much money to the business owner without having to give a bunch to the employees. So those kind of dental practices work really well also.
Amazing. Now, you know, I start hearing words like skewing contributions towards the owners and things like, you know, large contributions and, you know, talking $200,000-$300,000 a year. And I know for most people, when they hear things like that, like little red, you know, warning lights start going on and saying, is this really for real? Like why would the IRS allow such generous tax deductions through these plans? Why are they encouraging this when it feels like most of the time the IRS is coming after us, trying to squeeze us for everything that we're worth? So why do they allow this?
Yeah, it's a great question. We do get that sometimes. It almost sounds too good to be true, right? Well, and when you see the numbers, you think about it. It's because the business owners are giving very substantial contributions to their employees. You're not required by the IRS to sponsor a retirement plan. Some states are now requiring it, but you know, the federal government doesn't require it yet. But even if you do, you're really only required to have employees be allowed to save for their own retirement. When you add a cash balance plan, you're probably going to be contributing somewhere between 7 and, you know, at least 10, maybe even 15% of pay for your employees, which is a very generous contribution. And so Congress has looked at it and said, man, you know, we have a retirement crisis in this country. You know, Social Security isn't super well funded. And even if it was, most people can't live on Social Security alone in retirement, yet they aren't really saving. And so Congress is really trying to push companies to help those employees save. And so one of the ways is a 401k. Yes, let's help employees put their own money in. But the cash balance plan requires that the business owner put money in for the employees. So basically to do that, nobody would do it if you weren't getting these really large tax deductions. So that's why Congress is offering it, is they're saying, all right, yeah, we'll give a really big tax deduction to a business owner if that business owner is willing to put in 5-10% of pay for their employees. We'll give them a big tax deduction. So that's really why they're pushing it.
So they're really incentivizing you as the business owner to put some money away for your own retirement, give you a large tax deduction because they know there's this retirement crisis and they want to encourage you, essentially, instead of giving the money to them, to give it to your employees and the people who we can help solve a retirement crisis for.
Exactly correct.
Yeah. Very, very amazing. No, these are great plans, but like anything, right? Things in life, there's not always upside. So are there any downsides to cash balance plans?
Yeah, good question. I mean, you know, there's fees to run them, right? You got to pay your actuary. You know, there's kind of a lot of people involved in it. You've got probably a financial advisor that's going to manage the money once you invest it. You've got an actuary and a TPA who are going to do all of the calculations to figure out how much you can contribute, prove that the amount of contributions are fair between owners and employees, file all the required forms with the IRS. So the fees are a downside. You know, some people are scared of the commitment, you know, that you have to, when you have one of these plans, that you're probably going to be making a contribution every year. You know, we talked about that a little bit earlier with the flexibility, but you do still have a plan. You probably will, even in the down year, you'll still be making some level of contributions for employees. Other than that, not a lot of downsides. Mostly upsides. I mean, the tax savings is definitely the biggest benefit that you're going to get from this, but also helping you save for retirement. I mean, one of my favorite parts is when I meet with business owners, at the end of their plan, right? Whether they sold their business or they just retired or whatever, for whatever reason, are no longer, contributing to the plan, is, oh my gosh, I've got $2 million in here or $3 million in here. I could have never done that without the cash balance plan. So that's always a really good feeling for me. And for those business owners, employees the same way. Like they might have an employee that retires with, $50,000 or $100,000. And they're like, wow, I had no idea that my company was helping me put away this much money for retirement. That's really cool. So, yeah.
That's so amazing, Charlie. And on those downside ends, right? It really is kind of right, the additional expenses in running things, right? They're not inexpensive plans. They're not super expensive either. But I always tell people, a Porsche isn't an inexpensive car either, right? If you need the performance, you kind of got to pay for it. But the other piece that you touched on, and I want to dive in a little bit, is really managing all the different parties that are involved. And can you take us through some of the different people? Because I know those are questions I get all the time. And I have to spend time explaining, who are the different people and who are their roles. And I think this is important for everyone to understand. And then we'll talk about how do you simplify the communication among everyone.
Sure. So in every retirement plan, the money needs to be invested somewhere. So really the person on the front line is probably your financial advisor. He or she is the person who helps you decide, how aggressive you want to be with your investments, what areas are best to put all this money in. Because at the end of the day, we're investing it with the idea of growing it to have a lot more money in retirement than we have right now when we put it in. So the investment advisor is one piece.
And actually, I'll stop you there on the investment advisor real quick. The first book I was invited to write a foreword to, called Becoming Seriously Wealthy, John Bowen, Russ Allen Prince, I got to write the foreword in it. And we did some research on advisors. And I think this is important for everyone to understand. And we ask financial advisors, do you know about defined benefit plans, which are kind of similar to cash balance? There's some similarities, some differences. And we asked them, they said, do you know about these plans? And what's shocking is 77.3% of the advisors put their hands up and said, we know all about these plans. So we've got a lot of knowledge, right? Like 8 out of 10 advisors know about these plans. But then we ask a simple follow-up question. Have you done one single plan for one single client? Like pretty low bar here. One plan, one client. And all of a sudden, Charlie, that number drops from almost 80% down to 8.9%. Less than 1 out of 10 advisors have actually implemented a plan like this for their clients. And so, that's can be a little scary. So your advisor may talk about it, but you should ask them a follow-up and say, do you actually do these plans for your clients? Because huge gap between knowledge and implementation. So I just wanted to point that out there, because I think that's such an important thing for people to take home.
Yep. And I mean, like I said, that's an untapped resource, right? Like as actuaries, we probably need to meet more advisors and teach them more about these plans. I always consider myself, I'm not doing sales, I'm just doing education, right? So my job is to teach people about how cash balance plans work, and then they can use that knowledge and do whatever they want with it. Adopt a plan, don't adopt a plan, whatever, it's their choice. But it's nice to understand what your options are. So anyway, back to kind of how it works.
Parties. We've got the investment advisor or wealth advisor in there who's kind of driving the investments. Who else are involved? Who are some of the other players?
Yeah. So then you also have an actuary. So, our firm or me, I'm an enrolled actuary. The IRS requires that you have an actuary certify that there's enough money in your plan every year, and that you're meeting all of their rules and requirements. And so, you're going to hire an actuary to basically make sure that you're doing that and not getting in any problems. The third kind of part of it usually is what we call a third-party administrator, or a TPA. So your TPA is similar to your actuary, but they're handling things on the 401k side. So pretty much every cash balance plan will be paired with a 401k profit sharing plan. partly because of the building block approach to designing plans, but also the way, not to get too actuarial on it, but the way the IRS sets up the rules for proving that the amounts are fair between owners and employees kind of makes it beneficial for the owners to get the majority of their contributions in the cash balance plan and the employees to get the majority of their contributions in the profit sharing portion of the 401k plan. And so pretty much every cash balance plan will be paired with 401k. So that's why you'll have both an actuary and a TPA to handle the compliance side of your retirement plans. Probably the last group that can be involved is what we call a record keeper. So your record keeper is the company that hosts a website where you and your participants can log on and see how much money they have in the plan, make any changes to their investments, things like that. They're keeping track of who has what, because at the end of the day, all the money kind of goes into one pool of money and then it gets allocated out to each person. And so somebody has to keep track of that. So that's generally the record keeper. So those are kind of the four main pieces to a retirement plan. Your accountant will probably also be very involved because he or she will want to, make sure you're taking advantage of all the tax deductions you can get, but not, getting yourself in any trouble with cash flow or things like that. So, usually like if I had my ideal client, it would be a client that is willing to sit down with the actuary, the advisor, and their accountant and discuss their retirement plan, as well as a TPA that's willing to make sure the two retirement plans work together. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of how it works.
Okay. Well, and I know when I got started early on, right, just managing all those parties and getting everyone to talk to each other, right, it kind of created some nightmares. And so how do these business owners, right, how can you manage this in a way so that it's simple to run and that the business owner, right, you as the dentist don't have to become an expert in plan administration and running these things? Or are there any tips and strategies you have around that for us?
Yeah, sure. I mean, you do not have to be the quarterback of it. So, because you're not an expert in retirement plans, you're an expert in dental work. So, I think the main keys I would say are get a good team that has experience in doing it, that's used to working together, and let them give you advice and listen to it and pay attention to it. And if you don't understand, ask questions. I think honestly, one of the things Tim asked me, well, what does your company do better than everybody else? One of the things I think we do is we take these relatively complicated actuarial concepts and explain them in a way that business owners can understand without it being super overwhelming. And so, that's my advice is, get together a team that is used to working together, that you can trust, whether it's your accountant or your financial advisor. They will have TPAs and actuaries that they like to work with, that have experience in this situation and will do a really good job. And if you don't have those people, call me or Tim. We're happy to introduce you to some that do a great job and have a good experience. So yeah, I mean, we're not putting this on you. We're the professionals. That's what you're paying us to do, is to help you through navigate all these IRS rules and requirements. And so we'll make it as easy on you as we can.
Excellent. Well, I like to ask that, and I think it's so important. And I love that differentiating factors, right? Communicating in real English, right? Plain English, taking complex concepts and making them simple. In fact, there's 9 core drivers of a virtual family office, which are really the structures that I help driven dental entrepreneurs run. And one of those core drivers is connected, coherent communication, right? Do your professionals talk to you in a way that you understand, or do you leave their office with your head spinning? And we want clarity for you, right? We want to eliminate that financial confusion and fear and give you clarity. And we are dealing with a pretty complex area. So the simpler that we can make it, the better. And that's what I love about what you do so much, Charlie, is you make these things simple to understand. And so for a doctor who's listening to this and you're thinking, man, maybe this is right for me. I have a 401k, or I have a defined benefit plan, and I'm just like not happy with having to make the same levels of contribution every year. What's the first step that they should consider in getting a cash balance plan set up for their practice, or analyzing it, or even getting a second opinion on their existing plan? What's a good starting point for that?
Yeah, well, we don't charge for any of those things. So we're happy to take a look at your current plan and give you a second opinion. If you don't have a plan, we're happy to, send, if you can send over your census information, all of your employees, dates of birth, dates of hire, compensation. We can put together a free plan design proposal that would show you, hey, here's how much you could contribute as the business owner for yourself. Here's how much you would have to give to your employees. And then sit down and have a discussion, Teams meeting or whatever, in person if you're close to me in Minnesota. But either way, it's a virtual world these days, so lots of online meetings. But and just go through it, answer any questions you might have, explain to you how it works, give you some tips for maybe where you could improve things if you have an existing plan. And kind of do a real-time plan design where you say, I might show you our default is generally to say, hey, here's the maximum the owners can get, here's the minimum the employees can get. But we have some clients that say, you know what, I love my employees, I really want to help them save for retirement. Yeah, I might be able to give them 7%, but I really want to make sure that all my employees are getting 10%. Okay, we can run that design. Or we might have a business owner that says, yeah, I know I could put in $200,000, but I don't really need that much, or I don't have the cash flow to afford to put in $200,000. So what would it look like at 100 or 150 or whatever? We can run those scenarios for you in real time, and you can kind of see, okay, yeah, that, to get 200,000, I have to give my employees 20,000. To get 150, I only have to give them 17,000. Okay. And we can kind of play with that until you have a design that you like, that you're comfortable with. I mean, we don't want to get you into anything that overcommits you, right? So like, you don't want to be forced to make contributions if you don't have the cash flow, anything like that. So we're very cognizant of that, and we'll help walk you through it.
Yeah. Well, in that plan design phase, I think that gets missed so often, right? Someone gets an illustration, usually provided by a third-party administrator who actually doesn't even have an actuary on staff, right? They're going right, and so let's talk about that a little bit, right? Kind of that real, having a real team, because a lot of people say, "Oh, we can do cash balance plans," but they actually don't have people like you on staff at the firm, do they?
Correct. Yeah, and we do some, we do work with TPAs a lot, and so a lot of TPA firms. They might just not do enough cash balance plans to have their own actuary on staff. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. What I would say is make sure that the actuary is available to speak with you and answer questions, whether they work directly for the TPA or, they outsource it. I don't think that is really as important. What you want to avoid is the companies out there that are just sending something to the actuary signs it, and they don't really understand the client. You want, your actuary can give you much better advice if they know a little bit about your business, know what your goals are. We can help you plan to make sure that you are meeting those goals. And so if you don't ever talk to your actuary, and I know not all actuaries are super easy to talk to, but most of us are pretty nice. And so I'd say have a conversation with the actuary. If the TPA isn't able to help facilitate that conversation, it might be time to look for a new TPA that does have actuaries that can talk to you and help you out.
I love that, right? It's the importance of access, not necessarily if they're integrated or not, but it's can you access them? Because it does come up. You may get your plan design and you don't understand why something the way it is, or you want to change it, or you want to make modifications, and you have to talk to the person who actually knows what's going on. And so many times, right, I've had points of frustration where I haven't been able to get a hold of the actuary. I don't work with those companies anymore, but I've run into those situations where it's just frustrating for me. It's frustrating for the client. It's frustrating for the CPA. And these things aren't a lot of fun, but when they work, they just work, right? When you've got a well-oiled team and people who know what they're doing, they work so well. And so, what advice, or actually even before that, are any changes or updates in the tax law, right? I think there's some tax credits available. People can actually get, government assistance for setting up plans, can't they?
Yeah, so the Secure Act and Secure 2.0 that have recently passed Congress are just more examples. I mean, really, we've been seeing this since the early 2000s with the Pension Protection Act, that they're really pushing cash balance plans as kind of a nice hybrid between traditional pension plans and 401ks as a way of larger retirement savings without necessarily being locked into the commitment of a pension plan that can fluctuate with interest rates, and you're locked in every year as you get older. But part of the Secure Act has been a few things. Number one, they've allowed you to set up retirement plans now all the way until your tax return due date. So it used to be that for cash balance plans, we had to get them all set up by December 31st for calendar year taxpayers. And it was a rush, and business owners didn't always know how their year went by December 31st. So it's nice. Now you can wait until after the end of the year, see how your year was. And you have all the way until, if you're an S corporation, March 15th. If you don't extend your taxes, or even technically all the way till September 15th, if you do get an extension of your taxes of the following year, to set up your retirement plan retroactively back for the past year. Now, don't call me on September 14th and say you want a plan, because we won't be able to do it. But our general deadline is July 31st. So if you extend your tax return and you want a plan, for 2024, you have until July 31st, 2025 to get it set up. So that was a big driver of making this easier to access for business owners. And they also did put in a lot of tax credits, like Tim was saying. So, there's tax credits for the setup fees and a tax credit is the best kind of thing you can get from the IRS. Like a tax deduction is great, lowers your taxable income, but a tax credit is a dollar for dollar. Like they'll give you the money right back. You pay your actuary to set up your plan, and then you get a tax credit right back. So there's a couple downsides to it. If you already have a plan, you are not eligible for those tax credits. But if you're starting from scratch and you don't have a plan, you can get a tax credit that should cover pretty much all of the setup costs of your 401k and cash balance plans. And then they even are giving a tax credit of up to $1,000 per employee for the contributions you make for employees. So they're really trying to get businesses that don't offer retirement plans to set them up and offer them. So those tax credits aren't forever. I think they phase out after 3 years. But man, in the first year of the plan, it can really make it almost cost nothing for the business owner to set up these retirement plans. So yeah, it's
so powerful.
Thank you, Congress. Yeah, very powerful.
So powerful. What a great thing to take advantage of. And for those of you listening that do have a plan, Charlie, is there any benefit in reviewing your plan on a regular basis, or do you just set these up and put the contribution in and let them run? How often should you actually look at the fees and expenses that you're paying, and how well the plan is operating and the plan design? Are there's some clues or things to look at that might trigger us to get a second opinion and stress test our plan to really make sure it's going to deliver the results that we're expecting?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, for sure, you should be looking at your plan at least once a year to make sure that, the contributions are what you expect they're going to be. I'm a big fan of what's called beginning of year actuarial valuations, so that for our clients, they get a look, after they've finished their contributions for example, right now, they finished their 2023 contributions. And now they're starting on 2024 contributions. We're able to actually give them their range of contributions during the year, so that they don't have to wait until after the end of the year to find out, what's my cash balance contribution going to be? They can know now and still have time to make adjustments to it. So they can do things like change their compensation, pay themselves a higher bonus or a lower bonus, change what they're invested in, amend the plan if you need to. So, there's lots of areas of flexibility that we can use during the year, not as many areas of flexibility that we have after the end of the plan year. So, that's I kind of lost track of what your original question was, Tim. I went off on beginning year evaluation.
Just that idea of, right, should we be reviewing our plans, or are these things set and forget it, right? Does it make sense to make sure we are paying reasonable fees for these? Make sure we do have the best service providers.
Yep, definitely. So yeah, I do not think it's set it and forget it. Yeah. So again, review it every year to make sure it's meeting your plan design goals. I mean, as far as fees are concerned, you know, most of the providers are probably going to be in the same range. But if you notice something out of whack, yeah, it never hurts to get another fee quote, right? Nobody's gonna charge you for that. They're happy to provide fee quotes. You know, with fees, I would say not always do you get exactly what you paid for, but in general, you know, if somebody's quoting a really low fee compared to other providers,
Mhm.
there's probably a reason. So I would, you know, ask questions, make sure you understand, you know, how involved the actuary is going to be in your plan, what they're actually doing, because you can get in trouble if you just set it and forget it, right? If you're not getting advice, cash balance plans have a lot of rules. There are like lifetime maximums that you can put into a cash balance plan. So you don't want to have an overfunded cash balance plan. So if all the actuary is giving you is just a minimum and maximum contribution every year, you're probably not getting the whole picture, because you might just keep putting in the maximum. And you know, I can't tell you how many clients we've seen that we've taken over from other actuaries, and they said, well, the actuary never said I couldn't put that much money in. It's like, well, yeah, you can put it in, but you can't take it back out, because at the end of the day, all of this money you're gonna contribute it to the cash balance plan, but at some point you're going to terminate the plan. You're going to roll that money over into your IRA or 401k to continue deferring taxes until you're no longer working and you're in a much lower tax bracket. So there's just a lot of moving parts to a cash balance plan. So you definitely want to review it every year and make sure that you know, your actuary is explaining to you exactly how it works and warning you of any problems that might arise.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for explaining that. And then, you know, lastly, how can we get in touch with you and find you if we have questions on these or we want to get an illustration for our practice?
Yeah. So our website, www.cashbalanceactuaries.com, is a is a great place to go. We have examples out there. We've got all of our contact information, all that kind of stuff. We even post our fees on our website. We're very fee conscious. It's all flat fee based on the number of employees you have in your plan. And so, you know, we don't charge a percentage or anything like that. If there is any revenue sharing, we credit it right back to your account. So our goal is to keep your fees easy to understand and as low as possible, so that, it makes, you're not eating into your tax savings just by paying us fees. So yeah, our website is the best place to go to. But call, email, text. I mean, I'm around all the time for those kind of things. So, but yeah, I would say start with our website, and then, find my contact information and reach out, and we'll take it from there.
Excellent. And your website's down below. You can click on that if you're watching this and check it out. It's a great resource. You can learn more about these plans and really see if they're right for you. And Charlie, before we sign off here, any closing thoughts before we sign off on the show here?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Tim. I mean, what I would like dentists to know is that, cash balance plans, it's just such a powerful tax savings tool that you should, if you're at all curious, just reach out. It doesn't hurt. Even if just get the facts, get an illustration run, see if it makes sense for you. And if it doesn't, that's fine. And if it does, great. And, our goal is the same as your goal. We're trying to help you save for retirement, increase the amount that you have at the end of the day. So that's really our goal. And we just want to make sure that it's a choice, and you should at least try it and see if it makes sense for you.
Excellent. Well, hey, Charlie, thank you for being an amazing guest. I know I certainly have a better and deeper understanding of what these plans are and how they operate. And I do this every day, and I walked away with a little bit more understanding. So thank you. I certainly am excited about implementing this. And I love the additional flexibility that you talked about. So thank you for just sharing your passion for helping business owners navigate the tax code and actually understand and make something very complex simple. So thank you again.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me, Tim.
And for all of our listeners, we'll see you again here soon on the Dental Wealth Nation Show.
You've been listening to Dental Wealth Nation. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Join us next time as we pull back the curtain to reveal the often hidden advice and strategies used by today's most successful individuals and families, and help maximize your net worth so you can take even better care of the people you love. Till next time, make sure to hit the website at dentalwealthnation.com.